father longlegs, you know me, Daddy T. Or maybe you don't. And that's okay, considering sometimes I barely know myself. That's why it's so hard for me to make up my mind in a Taco Bell drive-thru. They really should give you more time to look at those menus. What's the quesadilla with that? Okay, fine, I'll stop. Like you, I am many things. Big sister, former RA, YMCA camp counselor, current stand-up comedian, and future dad joke slinger. Even though my resume does include go-go dancing in a 60s themed New Orleans bar, the only daddy issue I have is that I'm not one. But I know I would make a good dad. Or bad dad. A baddie daddy, if you will. Because I'm not afraid to tell it to you like it is. I'll crack a few dad jokes and cold ones while I'm at it. Growing up, you were told that crying is for babies. Perhaps you played catch with your dad, but when it came to catching feelings, you were told it was better to stay out of the game. I'm sorry to break the news to you, but crying is not a sign of weakness. Sure, babies cry, but babies also see, hear, smell, and taste. Is tasting for babies? Although, adults that go wine tasting do often end up acting like babies. You can't understand what they're saying, they don't walk straight, and they have a weird fixation with choo-choo trains. Babies cry because it's the easiest way to get what they want. Sure, most babies are weak and helpless creatures, with a few exceptions, but the fact that babies are weak is entirely separate from the fact that babies cry. Babies are weak because they're not done growing yet, and babies cry because they need to communicate. As adults, we mainly use words to communicate, but as anyone who's tried to have a meaningful conversation with Siri knows, words are only part of communication. We communicate or exchange information in other ways, with our actions, with our facial expressions, our physical appearance, or the length of time we wait to reply to a text. Multiple scientific studies have shown that animals and babies who cry when they need something are more likely to survive. In fact, crying is so natural that the part of your brain that regulates crying also regulates breathing. It's the first human language, and it's universal. With all due respect to Emily in Paris, humans that learn to speak more languages are more likely to survive in foreign countries than humans who refuse to learn the local ways. Calling someone weak for crying would be like calling a pilot weak for knowing how to fly a commercial jet and a fighter jet. Crying is not a sign of weakness. Crying is a sign that your body is working. Babies cry to communicate, and they do cry more than adults because they're weak and helpless. Eventually, babies learn to eat solid food and poop in the potty and cry a little bit less. If I had to sit all day in a soggy cotton pad full of my own shit, and the only way to get clean is to cry my little baby eyes out, you bet I'm wailing like a demon. Babies learn that crying is an effective way to communicate with their caregivers. In fact, it's so effective that domestic cats have evolved their meow to sound more like a baby's cry. Researchers have found that cats meow differently around people than they do with each other. And then around adulthood, I assume they all communicate telepathically through their laser eye beams. But cats continue to meow around people because they've learned it gets them what they want. So basically, cats are the Veruca salts of the animal kingdom. We're so whipped by cats that to say something as dope, we call it the cat's meow.
You are so...
So if all that's true, why do we treat crying in humans differently? If an adult has all their needs met, a crying baby is not a threat. It's a call to provide care and love for another member of its community. But as humans evolved, populations grew, and resources became more and more scarce. If there isn't enough food and shelter for the adults, there isn't going to be enough food and shelter for the babies. To a needy adult, a needy baby is a threat. If we're conditioned to always give babies what they want, then that crying baby is always going to get care first. So a hungry adult subconsciously starts to think, that baby is going to get a bigger slice of cake than me. That's not fair, they don't even have teeth. Now mix in social duty, shame, guilt, and anger, and you've got a nice little cocktail of crying is a sign of weakness. Shake, stir, and enjoy. To be honest, Moscow mules do go great with my tears. But what now, Teresa? Are we supposed to cry every time we're at a dinner party to let our host know we need to use the washroom? Although that would make for very interesting dinners with heads of states, it would be an inefficient use of our time and energy. Crying takes more energy than speaking, which is why we develop more efficient ways to communicate as we grow up. But as we grow up, our needs grow more complicated. Outside of just wet diapers and needing to suck on a tit, Well, for some of us anyway. Some of those complicated needs might include, my family wants me to be a doctor, but I want to be an EDM DJ. Or, I want my boyfriend to propose, but he thinks the earth is flat. Or, I wish I could see more people who look like me on TV shows and in movies. When we can't put these needs directly into words to get them met, that triggers the crying. For example, in my 20s, I used to cry outside bars because I didn't know how to tell someone. I actually don't want to keep things casual. I just said that because I was afraid if I asked for more, you might take away the breadcrumbs of affection you've started to show me, and then I'll be all alone with just my fear of dying alone in this pickleback shop. Luckily for me, the anonymity of New York City and people's unconscious bias of sexism allowed me to cry outside bars without getting kicked out of my fantasy football league. But cis hetero men are not always so lucky in our society. Little boys are told to toughen up and act like a man. Scrape a knee, blow on it. Get your chest heartbroken, just get someone to blow your groin hard. You can spit, you can sweat, you can shit, but if you so much as let a drop of water come out of your eyes, your body must be broken. We tell boys to shake it off when they get injured or, God forbid, catch feelings. Shaking is actually a form of crying. Animals shake after stressful interactions to relieve the stress. Studies have shown that children growing up in stressful environments will sing and dance to self-soothe. You can imagine how confusing it must be for a body when as a young boy you're told to stop crying whenever you try to communicate. Then as a young man you're praised for not showing emotion, and all of a sudden you're a middle-aged man, and everyone in your life is like, why won't you open up and show more emotion? Sam, why can't you just be a little more sensitive, huh? When we tell boys not to cry but then criticize grown men for not being able to express their feelings, it's like teaching someone French and expecting them to speak fluent Spanish. Or telling a little girl she's cute whenever she shakes her butt. So she grows up absolutely obsessed with shaking her butt, but as she grows up, all of a sudden she's supposed to feel shame for putting her butt on Instagram, and it's like, what's the difference? I'm twerking, I'm shaking, I want to be cute again. I don't get it. I just don't get it. If we want to communicate effectively as humans, we need to learn the ABCs of our built-in body language. The Marines have a saying that pain is weakness leaving the body. Well, crying is painful, so crying is weakness leaving the body. Calling someone weak for crying would be like calling a lion weak for roaring. Unless you have 9 lives to spare, I wouldn't advise it. Would you call The Rock weak? Go ahead, I dare you. Crying is an intelligent form of communication and a healthy way of self-regulating. Personally, if I go too many days without organically crying, I like to just take an edible, listen to some Janae Aiko, and just sit there and wait for that sweet tear duct release. It's like jerking off, but for your face. In conclusion, crying is the cat's meow, the lion's roar, the baby's cry. Yeah, that's right. Next time you want to tell someone you think they're dope, just say, hey, I think you're the baby's cry.
You are so